building commissioner, DPW director,
So
all of the other,
everybody that's
everybody
under the
except
control of
the consolidated facilities director.
right.
So did I not hear correctly? I thought you said that that was taken away from the strong town administrator. That came back to
No,
the board.
it's taken away from the board. They're in agreement with us now that the fire chief and the police chief will not be appointed by the board, but will be appointed by the town administrator.
All right. I didn't hear that
With,
correctly.
again, the caveat that this is just our board and their board. We have to go to the warrant committee, and then we have to go to town meeting, and there could be people with different opinions at both of those stages of the game.
Right.
So back to 2J, they just think that the wording there needs to be cleaned up, and I think they're probably right. Again, it relates to the consolidated facilities director.
Yep.
The bigger comment, the more substantive one, was section 2P, like Peter. This, as it's written, it would have the town administrator serving as the chief procurement officer. And the government study committee's main comment is, let's take it out, let's do a little more research and deal with it down the road. They agree that the procurement officer should be a senior position, but they're questioning, should it be the town administrator, should it be the accountant, should it be somebody else? And if it's somebody other than the town administrator, maybe we want to say the town administrator has oversight of the procurement officer. So they really wanted to do some research, and I know Anne Marie was having Michael Blanchard do some research on this to see what other towns are doing.
And preliminary is that a lot of the towns our size,
I haven't read this memo yet, it came
Yeah,
over late afternoon.
a lot of them are the town administrator or the town manager.
Okay.
And
So-
unless, I guess the problem we have right now is we're not going to hire a separate person. I mean, it'd be great if we had the funds and at some point in time to hire a procurement officer. I don't see it happening in the near future. And I think there is a need to have somebody in charge of procurement. I mean, it's state law and a recommendation of the DOR report. And, you know, if it's, and it certainly should be somebody that at least, if it's not the town administrator that is the chief procurement officer, the town administrator should certainly have oversight responsibility and certainly should have the ability to appoint that person.
So why don't we do this? This memo from Michael Blanchard came over late this afternoon. Why don't we send this over to Rick Neely so his committee can take a look at it? I don't know if any of us, I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
And the only other thing I can think of here is in terms of, I mean, you've got a question on school town, and clearly unless the town administrator is specifically given that responsibility here, he or she would not have procurement authority over school, because Chapter 70, I'm sure, would take exception to that.
So we need to do some more research on this issue. Am I correct, is that Town School Consolidation Committee is looking at this
They're
also?
looking at it too. Well, which may be a memorandum of understanding to be one procurement officer. You know, but that doesn't preclude us from naming or giving the town administrator either oversight or to appoint the town administrator as a procurement officer and let her delegate, him or her delegate that responsibility, you know, as the case may be. It just wouldn't, I don't think they'd have any control, that person would have any control over the school side in terms of purchasing without some kind of an agreement between the schools and the town. Again, I'm not positive of that, but I would assume that.
All right, well, the chair of the school committee is serving on the Town Government Study Committee, so we can ask that it be, if necessary, that the school committee take this. Although the town school
consolidation committee is chaired by a school committee member as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we should probably raise it with both of them.
Right.
And the comment I was getting back from Rick was that they don't dispute the need for this or that it should be a senior position. They just felt that more research needed to be done. And we need to button down some questions, because if we go into the warrant committee, we're going to be asked a lot of specifics. We're going to have to defend we're at the end of the day giving this to the warrant committee and saying, this is what we'd like you to recommend to town meeting. So we have to be able to answer their questions, and we all have to be comfortable with it. So we've also sent it over to town council, and we can ask for his opinion on section 2P as well.
Okay.
Any other comments on 2P? Then let's go, the other changes are right after 2W. We had a sentence stating the town administrator may authorize any subordinate officer or employee to exercise any power or perform any function or duty which is assigned to her or him. The Government Study Committee wants to take this out. They think it's too broad, and their concern was, could the town administrator delegate to the assistant town administrator the appointment of the police chief? Now, I think that's highly unlikely. I think we could also solve it by saying to exercise any power, parentheses, other than the power of appointment of department heads. I think there's ways we can finesse this
Yeah,
language
yeah.
to address
But
their concern.
certainly, the town administrator needs the ability to delegate responsibility.
So I did communicate to Rick that we had talked about this sentence before, and it was longer initially. We took out, I think there was a second sentence or another clause. We took some of it out. We modified it to try to conform to what their concern was, but maybe it needs some further modification. But I did tell Rick that we think this is important.
Yep, I agree.
So we should go back, do we want to go back to them and let them know we still think it's important to have?
Yes.
Dennis,
I'll
you-
leave that in, yeah.
Okay. Section 3, well, it was Section 3. They want to take it out. It said the Board of Selectmen may delegate and rescind any additional administrative function or any civil service appointment, removal, or discharge authority or responsibility to the town administrator. And the Government Study Committee just thinks it's unnecessary.
Well, it may be unnecessary, because, I mean, right now, as a board, we have that ability anyways. But a subsequent board could take it away.
Yeah, we've already delegated some duties that, you're right, that a later board could take away.
Right.
I guess the question is, how strongly do we feel that if we already have that authority, do we really need to have it in this? And again, we'll ask town council what his thoughts are on this as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
But what do we want to report back to the Government Study Committee?
I guess it's the same thing. I mean, it's saying the selectmen may delegate and rescind, so every board is on their own, so it may be unnecessary. I could
Sounds like the prior sentence is more, we
more,
hear more about that.
yes, yeah.
Is that fair to say?
I would say that's fair to say.
Do you agree, Dennis?
I'm deciding, actually.
We don't have to decide
Well-
tonight. Their plan is,
Delegate and rescind.
Yeah, I don't know how much we can delegate right now, whether we could delegate. I mean, there's certain things we probably can't delegate right now. Well, I mean, that's why
the
this is.
conduit hearings
Yeah,
that we wanted to, and we were told we couldn't.
Could
Right.
go either way.
Okay. I do think the prior sentence is the more important one of the two.
I agree.
But the Government Studies plan is to meet again on the 24th if necessary, and then on March 9th. So they'll take this up again at either of those meetings, but March 9th might be a little bit late because we have to go to the warrant committee in early March. The final change that the Government Study Committee had was in Section 7. This provides for, if there's a vacancy in the town administrator position, for the board to appoint an interim town administrator, and they want to limit it so that the person could serve for not more than 12 months.
Yeah, I heard about this, and
As an interim,
yes.
Yes.
yeah. I'd
My
agree with
only
that.
concern, and I would say as a general rule of thumb, that is desirable, but, to deal with, perhaps a scorched earth thing, I mean, you just plain can't find somebody, the ability to at least extend
Yeah,
that.
that language should be put in there, yeah.
I don't know how you'd say it, but
In the event we can't find a suitable person.
Or I suppose if an offer is made and then
yeah, I mean, and
someone doesn't
who
take
knows
the
what could
position and
happen,
then there's
yeah.
a new search is
Right,
needed.
yeah.
Okay, well, let's flag the question if we need more time.
So just that there be some leeway to extend that.
Okay. All right, I'll report that back to Rick.
My only other concern, and I expressed it the last time, and it wasn't changed in this one, is in the Section 1, the town administrator shall devote full time to the office and not hold any other public or elective or appointed, and shall not actively engage in any other business or occupation.
Unless the Board of Selectmen approves it
Approve
in
it.
writing in advance.
Yeah.
I thought we decided that that final clause took care of the concern.
I mean, I'd rather see something more broad, just saying that the town administrator, stated more negatively than positively, that, the town administrator shall devote full time to the office and, shall not engage in activities, which would take away from the ability to function on a full-time basis. As opposed to say that you can't, I mean, we're all volunteers, and we all have full-time jobs and work many, many hours. It's not impossible to do it. And, I mean, for example, the town administrator gets asked to be on the board of directors of a hospital someplace. Are we going to deny him that privilege?
Well, I guess a board could say, depends on what the time commitment might be to the hospital or to whatever,
Right,
or
but
to serving in,
right,
last time you mentioned
and
serving.
clearly you run that risk that if you're not performing your job because you have outside activities that are interfering with it, then we have the right to terminate, either to say, this can't go any further, you've got to pick one or the other. But I don't know that we have the right to forbid somebody from running for public office. I mean, it bothers me, let's put it that way.
I thought last time we were comfortable about the last clause, but, all right, so is it both the occupation as well as holding office in another town? I thought your comment last time was they shall not hold any other public office in Milton.
Well, I agree they shouldn't, because that could be a conflict, so I agree that they should not hold a public office in the town of Milton. But if they don't live in the town of Milton and want to serve on the finance committee of, the town of Stoughton or wherever, what gives us the authority to say you can't do that other than it can't interfere with your job?
All right, well, why don't we do this? Why don't I flag it for Rick, let
Okay.
him report it back to his committee. I think the plan is that we'd like to get town council's thoughts on this and the whole thing.
Yeah,
And
I
there are other
agree.
provisions in here that we need to ask town council's thoughts
I mean, I can
on as well.
understand why it's in there, I just, but
Okay, so I'll report those changes. Are there any other comments or changes?
no.
We're getting close, that's a good thing. We're pretty broad agreement in general.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, we've come a long way on it.
We have. So the plan is for this to go to the warrant committee in early March after they get through their budget discussions. And we'll have to go in and meet with the warrant committee and answer questions and explain. Obviously, that we don't have agreement on every point. We've all compromised a little bit on both boards' sides. I think we've covered everything up to town administrator's report. Did we leave anything else off? Moved around quite a
Just the
bit
public
tonight.
safety thing, we said we're going
We'll defer that,
Defer
just
that.
given the hour. All right, town administrator's report.
Madam Chair, I was going to give an update on the snowstorms, but I think that was covered earlier in the evening, so I don't have anything else to report.
Okay. We put under the chair's report an update on the Eustis Estate, and I think the town administrator and I together can probably go over this. Everybody knows the Eustis Estate is a unique, magnificent property up on Upper Canton Avenue. It's really a special place, and I think the town is just very fortunate that it's being preserved. The town administrator and I have had 2 meetings at the Eustis Estate, most recently last week with Historic New England's Chief Operating Officer, Diane Vieira, and the team leader for visitor experience, whose name is Peter Gittleman. And they gave us a status report. We had previously gone for a tour of the estate with some of the department heads, and they're in the process of doing a lot of program planning and meeting with neighbors. So they gave us a report on what will be the Eustis Estate Museum and Study Center. They began back in October having meetings with their immediate abutters on Chestnuts Run, and they've had a couple of subsequent meetings. They got some feedback from the neighbors about the programming, and based on some comments that they've received from those immediate abutters, they've made some changes to the social events that they'll be planning for the estate and parking location, traffic pattern. So they're trying to be very responsive to the abutters and the neighbors' concerns. And it seems that they've made some real changes. based on the comments that they've received. They had a meeting last week with a broader group of the neighbors in the area, not the immediate abutters, but neighbors in the surrounding area, who were very enthusiastic about their plans. And they're going to be hosting some of the cultural organizations in town, like the Forbes House Museum and some others, to go up and see the property and hear what their plans are for the property. They've submitted to the building commissioner a plan for the estate, and the expectation is that they're going to need a special permit from the Board of Appeals. So they're expecting to get a denial from the building commissioner and then file an appeal to the Board of Appeals. And in connection with that, we did talk about whether maybe this board, and I know both of you were going to go up for individual tours at some point like we did, but the one thing that we talked about was whether the Board of Selectmen maybe would be willing to submit a letter in support of the Eustace Estate and Historic New England once they get to the stage of the special permit. But mainly what they're doing is they're continuing a lot of their preparation for their programming and their preservation work. They're planning right now, they don't have a specific time, but 2016 will be the time that they open, probably later in the year.
June, July of 2016 is what they were hoping to open at.
Oh, like open what?
Open to the public, their museum.
For tours, they're going to have special exhibits, they're going to have weddings and other
Weddings.
functions, availability to rent the estate for that purpose. But tours, so tours would be certain days of the week and certain hours, obviously, like any museum.
And
We
will
open
it
at
be,
certain times for tours. And they'll
So
have,
the weddings will be for fundraising, basically, is it? Because they're a nonprofit group.
yeah, they said more than that. It's more to bring people into the estate and to build connections with the community. So it would obviously raise money for them, but they view it as part of their programming.
Weddings? I mean, my only concern is that, under the Dover Amendment, they would have to use the property for its intended purpose. And if they're having weddings for profit, then, I guess that's $100,000 taken off the tax roll when historic
It
New
is.
England purchased it. So it's a big loss to the town, and the rest of the taxpayers have to make up that amount.
Right,
So-
it's a big
So-
financial loss, but
It is.
otherwise it's a cultural gain, financial
gain.
loss.
Understood, yeah. So if they're going to be having weddings for profit, I think is something that the pilot committee should be looking into.
There's no harm in looking into it. They do have weddings at their other properties, and so it's something that's tied in with their programming.
Right.
It's not something unique that they'll be doing here.
Right.
But I agree that $100,000 is off the tax rolls is a big financial loss, but it is just an immense gain for the town. That property, we've already talked earlier tonight about 40B, that property could be subdivided, anything could have happened up there if it had been sold to a developer. And the vistas from the site, just the different, the uniqueness of the project, it has a lot of local history, the Eustace family and the Hemingway family. It's so tied in with the history of Milton, and it's such a beautiful property that I think it's going to be a huge benefit to the town that it's being preserved and that it's going to be maintained as a house museum. And people will be able to go in for tours and have social events.
How many
There'll be a
acres?
limit on the social events, and that's one of the things they've worked out with their immediate abutters.
How
But
many acres up there, do you know?
80.
80 acres.
The gatehouse is going to be their offices, and they have a staff living at the house.
Is that the stone, with the stone entrance?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's going to be their office.
so you go under that and,
Right.
No, they're going to get a curb cut to the right of that. They're not going to use that archway as their main egress and access. They're going to have a curb cut to the right of that, which comes up onto the property.
It's not a very wide drive under that arch, and they
No.
said that was really built in the days of the horse and carriage.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
and it's,
well, in the
the curb
interest,
cut will at least keep the route up through the
To the same.
tree path and up the hill, up to, the approach to the house will be the same.
yeah, I think the preservation is a great idea, but I do look forward to speaking to them about potentially a pilot payment.
Well, I did forward you an invitation for February 25th.
Yeah, I'm going to go.
To that meeting that night, and they will give you an overview of what their programming will look like in the future, what they hope to, what the museum, what they hope to, the exhibits that they hope to have at the exam. So I encourage you to go to that on February 25th.
So we
It's
told them-
magnificent. It's a magnificent property. It really is.
It is, and I've said it before, but I think, we should thank the Eustace family. The property was sold, so wasn't a donation, but still the forethought that Mr. Eustace and his family had to preserve a lot of things inside the house that over the years could have been discarded or updated or changed, but it was really preserved to keep it as it was decades and decades ago. And it's going to be a great historical resource. I'm sure the Historical Commission is really looking forward to this opening, especially, but all of us are.
It's just a developer in me, I look at 80 acres and what I could put there.
A lot could have gone there,
Yes.
so it's great that it's being preserved. But we told them we would give an update to help start getting the word out a little bit on what their plans are. And somewhere mid-2016 is probably the opening to the public. I don't have anything else to report. Does anyone have anything to report?
Oh,
Nothing to report.
Do we have anything?
Snow.
shit. Snow and more snow.
Do we have anything on citizen speak response? We had quite a few citizens speak tonight. We've covered some of it, but we could also respond at a future meeting if there's anything we want to cover tonight that came up tonight. Or we could address anything that's come up at a prior, citizen speak at a prior meeting tonight.
I think we saw the frustration of one person tonight that's probably
Yes.
reflecting many people in town. But you brought up a great point, Katie. We're hearing a lot more compliments than complaints. And they've worked 24/7 for the last 3.5 weeks, so just can't be stressed enough how much stress they're under.
Right.
And I think they've got the support of this. I know they have the support of this board, especially
department heads.
The department
Staff,
heads.
yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
And but it is somebody's right to come in and complain, and we listened. And
Yeah, we don't want personal attacks.
Correct.
Absolutely not.
But we
Yeah,
understand
it's uncalled for.
frustration, and we understand that it's been a long 3 or 4 weeks for people. and
Right.
We're all
It is
we're
very
all
frustrating,
experiencing it.
but it's not just Milton, it's in every town and city you drive through is going through the same thing, and you just have to be patient, take a deep breath, and it'll be spring soon enough, but
Look at the problems the MBTA is having. That's
Right.
just one example of, this is everywhere. So every town and city is dealing with these issues.
Now, the other thing, I think Diane had brought up, comparing the blizzard of '78 when everything was closed for an entire week, and why that couldn't be done again. I mean, obviously, taking the huge hit to statewide revenue that causes, but clearly, an individual city or town couldn't close their roads. I mean, it would have to either be a statewide thing or not. I mean, Milton couldn't close its roads and say, Quincy, you can't come through here. I mean, it's just not going to
A
happen.
blanket closure, I see.
Right. You couldn't do that.
I think we are. I think Joe has closed a couple of roads, given the state of emergency that
Right.
we declared, but that's different.
Yeah. I agree, it might help, it might get the roads cleared quicker, but,
Well, I think the chiefs addressed, and Joe addressed that in one of the prior meetings when they were in, that technology is so much improved and response to these emergencies is so much different than it was in 1978, and
right.
the weather forecasting is a lot better, most of the time. Maybe not always. Anything else for citizen speak or future agenda items? We're going to put the budget back on the discussion, on the agenda for the 24th.
Okay.
In light of the snow and ice deficit, that's going to be a record amount, where I spoke with the warrant committee chair and the school committee chair today. Anne Marie had conversation with the warrant committee chair and with the superintendent. And so we're going to have some discussions. I don't know whether the warrant committee will be discussing the budget in general tonight or just meeting with their departments, but we'll put the budget on for the 24th. Does anyone have anything else we need to be adding?
So,
No, good.
Okay, then just for the benefit of the public who are here, we're going to have an executive session regarding collective bargaining, and then we're going to adjourn the selectmen's meeting, and then we're going to go to a meeting of the Governor's Stoughton Fund, which again will be an executive session. So that's our plan for the remainder of the evening. So I will move that we enter executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, believing that having this discussion in open session would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the body, and to return to open session to adjourn.
second?
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, we're now in executive session.